The Brooklyn Nets have had a rough past few years as an organization. There was the whole failed super team saga, the Ben Simmons issue, their head coach Steve Nash being fired, and of course, the Kevin Durant trade at this season's deadline. There really hasn't been any structure in Brooklyn, but after that KD trade, things are finally looking to be going in the right direction. But first, let's address this one rumor going around. It's that the Nets could trade both Mikal Bridges and Nick Claxton for Portland Trailblazers Anthony Simons and Shaedon Sharpe along with the first-round pick. And while I do understand the thought process, that would be a very bad trade. For one, you'd be trading away two Defensive Player of the Year candidates for a defensive liability in Anthony Simons and an average defender in Shaedon Sharpe, who also averaged only 10 points per game. And I'm not saying they're bad players or anything crazy like that, but trading away defense for offense has proven time and time again not to work. Just ask the Dallas Mavericks, who traded away Dorian Finney-Smith, or the Phoenix Suns, who traded away Mikal Bridges. Look, despite what people say, defense matters. There's a reason why all teams who won the finals were elite defensive teams. In 2022, Golden State were an elite defensive team. In 2021, Milwaukee were elite. The 2022 Lakers, all elite. And in 2019, the Raptors for sure were a stacked elite defensive team. So while Anthony Simons and Shaedon Sharpe are impressively skilled and dynamic offensive players, their lack of defense could potentially come back to haunt them during future playoff series. Only players like Steph Curry, Damian Lillard, and even James Harden can be average to below average defenders and still succeed. And that's just because they can score well over 30 to 40 points in a series on the offensive end to make up for their lackluster defense. Now, unless you think Anthony Simons and Shaedon Sharpe can do that, then I wouldn't pull the trigger on this trade if I were Brooklyn. So now that we've gotten that rumor out of the way, let me explain how exactly the Brooklyn Nets can be a serious team to watch next season. And to do that, we'll be breaking down and analyzing all of their most important players on the roster, starting with Mikal Bridges. After the trade from Phoenix, Bridges performed at an all-star level, averaging 26 points, 4 rebounds, and 2 assists while shooting over 37% from the three-point line. And this is exactly why I 100% disagree with trading him. And there's another rumor that suggested that the Grizzlies could potentially offer multiple picks and a player for him. But the good news is, despite all of these rumors, it's being reported that the Nets are in a win-now mode. So if they aren't looking for picks or young talent with potential in exchange for Bridges, the only way he could possibly be traded is for Damian Lillard or even a player like Jaylen Brown. And we all know Dame is not going anywhere. And when you really think about how many players you would have to give up to get Jaylen Brown, it just really wouldn't benefit Brooklyn at all. So I think it's safe to say Mikal Bridges has found a home in Brooklyn, at least for a while. Offensively, Bridges has been borderline elite, especially in the mid-range. In his time with the Suns at the beginning of the year, he shot over 45% from the mid-range on only a few attempts, so that ranked him in like the 20s or 30s. But in the last 20 games of the regular season, he jumped all the way up to 4th in the NBA in mid-range percentage, shooting 48% on a little over 5 attempts per game. So this just tells you that when the ball is in his hands more, he can score with the best of them efficiency-wise. His favorite spot to go to in the mid-range is just below the free throw line. Here, he is great at shooting a fall-away jumper from either the left or the right side of the court. His long arms allow him to have a tall and sometimes unblockable set point, which makes it easier to get it over bigger players. And when it comes to driving and finishing, he's pretty good here as well. He leads the Nets in driving percentage, finishing 51% of his shots on 6 attempts per game. And he drives about 11 times per game. Also, something that is very underrated are his handles. This season, he's shown an improved ability to break defenders out on the perimeter before driving inside and making a play. If he can continue to add on to his handles and ability to blow past defenders, that would be huge. And the fact that he's also an elite shooter and free throw shooter is why he'll most likely be an all-star next year. With the skill that he possesses along with the touches increasing, I can honestly see him averaging 24 to 25 points for next season. But his defense is why he should be considered untradeable. It is extremely rare to find a 26-year-old who can drop 25 points while playing great elite defense. In fact, him and Jaylen Brown are the single best 26-year-old two-way players. And no matter what age you go to, he's in the top tier of two-way players. And yes, I am officially announcing him as a two-way player. He's no longer just a 3-and-D wing. He can lock down the opposing team's best players on a nightly basis. And don't forget that he finished as the runner-up for Defensive Player of the Year a couple of seasons ago. And he was even in the race at some points this season. Now, the next player we need to talk about is Spencer Dinwiddie. The veteran averaged a solid 17 points and 6.5 assists while shooting 37% from 3 and 81% from the line. He's only 30 years old, so while he isn't 25 or 26, he also isn't really old either, and his play style is pretty good for longevity as well. His game doesn't rely on speed or flying above the rim. He's really good at picking his spots, whether that's getting to the rim or creating for himself in the mid-range or hitting a spot up 3. He's a good scoring guard with the ability to facilitate and run offense, something he did a lot with the Dallas Mavericks, even with Luka on the floor. Overall, he's just a really good point guard who will keep the guard spot stable and reliable. Next up, Cameron Johnson. He has definitely earned himself a big contract this offseason. So the Nets have a tough decision to make, but in our opinion, it shouldn't really be a tough decision. He's one of the best and most dynamic 3-and-D wings in the NBA. He averaged 15 points while shooting over 40% from 3. If the goal in Brooklyn is to remain as competitive as possible, then re-signing Johnson is a no-brainer. At 6'8", he's an elite scorer who has the ability to create at a serviceable level. And defensively, he's got good size, length, and mobility that allows him to be a good defender who can throw at bigger wing scorers. Plus, he's 27 years old, so he's pretty much at the peak of his career. You know exactly what you're getting from him on both ends of the court. Dorian Finney-Smith is also someone who's really valuable to the Nets. He averaged 8 points and 4 rebounds while shooting 33% from 3. And yes, he is limited offensively, especially due to him shooting his lowest three-point percentage since 2018. But he's much better than the numbers showed this season. He just had a bad year shooting is all. He shot over 37% from 3 over the past 3 seasons, including 2 near 40% seasons. And remember how important his shooting was for the Mavericks last season when in the playoffs, so he's known to hit big shots. Defensively is where he really stands out though. He is one of the more versatile defenders in the league. At 6'7", weighing 220 pounds, he is a long and physical defender who had one of the highest matchup difficulty ratings in the league this year, which means he guards superstars every single night and does a pretty good job of it. But someone who does more than just a good job on defense is Nick Claxton. Just like Mikal Bridges, this 24-year-old should be untradeable. He very well could have won Defensive Player of the Year this season. He averaged a monstrous 2.5 blocks per game throughout 76 games. And honestly, any other year, he would have won the award. But Jaren Jackson Jr. and Brook Lopez were arguably just a tiny bit better. And I really do mean only a tiny bit better. His timing and anticipation at the rim is just unworldly. Match that with his freakish length and athleticism, and you have an amazing rim protector. His shot blocking is great, no question about that. But his ability to switch onto smaller players is just as good. He is the perfect modern big defensively, and I'm willing to bet everything that he'll win Defensive Player of the Year before he hits age 30. He's just that good defensively. Now, when you look back at this roster, Mikal Bridges, Dorian Finney-Smith, and Nick Claxton make up the best defensive trio in the NBA, and that's why you cannot break them up. And Claxton is a great lob threat and pick-and-roll scorer as well, so he's not a huge liability on offense either. And as for their bench, it's kinda shaky, honestly. Seth Curry, who's one of the best bench scorers and shooters in the NBA, is a free agent, and his asking price may be a little too high for the Nets to sign him. But if he is within their budget, they shouldn't hesitate a moment to sign the 32-year-old. And as for their other bench piece, Royce O'Neal, he's been in some serious trade rumors. And as a solid two-way player, he's basically a less athletic Bruce Brown. He can shoot pretty well and play pretty tough defense, but he did just turn 30 years old. And funny enough, his birthday is actually the day this video is being recorded. But like I said, he's in trade rumors, and while they should think about keeping him, there's still a few upgrades that they need to make to this roster, and he's one of the best trade assets they have. Their need for 3-and-D wings is at an all-time high right now. While Seth Curry and Royce O'Neal's future is uncertain, the Nets' sharpshooter Joe Harris just agreed to a 2-year, $16 million contract to re-sign back with the team. Although he did have some serious shooting struggles after coming back from his injury, he cleared it up later in the season and bumped his percentage all the way up to 42% on 4.5 attempts per game. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him start off hot from 3 next season. Then you have Cam Thomas, who shocked everyone this year with his big performances. He's a player to look out for sure next season. The 21-year-old averaged 10 points while shooting 44% from the field and 38% from 3. All in just 16 minutes per game. I am positive he is in the lab working hard right now. And if he can give the Nets a solid 13 to 14 points next season on good efficiency, things are going to get even brighter in Brooklyn. And now, but certainly not least, we have to address Ben Simmons. He has been working extremely hard this offseason. He's posted multiple pictures and videos on social media of him doing strength and rehab training in the Nets facility and at the University of Miami. And sure, I know we would rather see him posting videos of him improving his jump shot, but at least we know for sure he's training and seriously preparing for 2024. There's even reports out there that say he might suit up for the Australian national team for the FIBA World Cup in late August. All in all, if Simmons can come back healthy and motivated, he could be a good contributor to the team. His defense, along with Claxton, Bridges, and Finney-Smith, is insane on paper. And for all of the reasons just mentioned, the Brooklyn Nets have the potential to really shock the NBA next season. But what do you think? Let us know in the comments down below. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.